What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Perfectly Blended Podcast, Season 4, Episode 16. Today's going to be fun. We have an interview, and that's coming up
right now.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Perfectly Blended Podcast. This podcast is for blended families, for couples that want to strengthen their marriage and want a brighter future. Perfectly Blended exists to break the stigma of divorce, drop the shame and guilt holding you back, and equip marriages to thrive instead of just survive. We believe all that is possible in this life is based on the power of Jesus Christ and His ability to restore us fully. Let's dive in. What is up, everybody? Welcome to today's episode. I am one of your hosts, Josh, here with the always gorgeous and beautiful Miss Christy. How are you, love?
I'm tired.
If you're not seeing this on video, that was funny. Very straight face. Other than that, how are you doing?
I'm good. This whole month is for me. Well, in Jesus.
Why don't you tell everybody what that's supposed to mean?
Because it's Christmas month, okay? I'm so excited. All the Christmas shopping is done except for a couple presents, and everything is wrapped and under the tree. Trees.
Yeah, so you bought a tell everybody about the sweater you bought.
My new ugly Christmas sweater?
Yeah, tell them. You were super proud of it today trying it on.
Yeah, so I went to, because I love wearing ugly Christmas sweaters. This is something that this is like the third or fourth year that I've really embraced it. I absolutely love it. So the very first ugly Christmas sweater I ever got, it's so obnoxious and it's still my favorite. I haven't found one yet that I like better. It's super bright red and has like red and white stripes all down the sleeves. And it has these little gnomes that have super tall hats going up it. And the hats have, the balls that are sticking right out and they're all glittery and stuff. And then the gnome's little feet are actually away from the shirt, they're sewn actual little legs. Then you can flick them like this and the little legs can go around like this. So it's still my favorite. But this year I went and got Josh and I ugly Christmas sweaters, and his is Elf from the movie Elf, when he's like Santa, like that one. And I have one with llama on it, and the llama, it's a big llama head, and the llama is holding a present, and the present, it says, "Put your drink in me." And so it's supposed to be, now I'm assuming, as a lot of you know, Josh and I are recovering alcoholics. So I'm assuming it means alcohol, but I mean, there's a stigma in my brain around that. So, but I walked out, I put it on and I walked out in the kitchen. He was in the kitchen and I grabbed one of my little water bottle things and I looked at him and I'm like, Phoom. And
popping your hip out and stuff, being proud of that thing.
I'm like, I can put my water in here and carry it around. Or eggnog.
She picked me up one, like she said, and fit like a tube sock, so that was super attractive. I'm like, not only is it an ugly sweater, it makes it an ugly Josh. So.
No, I'm exchanging it.
Yeah, that thing was super tube sock tight on me. So that was pretty.
I told you it looked small for a large.
It definitely was small.
Yeah, I'm like, this looks really small, but I don't want to get him an extra large and have you be like, why are you getting me an extra large? No,
this thing fit like a double X needed to be had at this point. So
yeah. So I have to exchange it.
So Christmas season is upon us. We are officially in the month of December. And you can notice she is sitting with her Christmas cup.
I just want to drink hot cocoa and watch Christmas movies. And I'm not going to lie. I would rather be doing that right now. Because I love this time of year so much. And you really can't see it.
You get it right to your face.
It wants to focus on my face.
We're trying to back up so you can focus on it. Hide our faces.
No.
Nope. Can't do it. Anyway, so I always, every night now, she has me make her hot chocolate. She likes hot chocolate made from scratch, the way that I make it. Because I use monk fruit sweetener instead of regular sugar, which is, it's basically calorie-free. It's sugar-free, but it tastes exactly like it. So I make it from scratch on the stove.
Yeah.
So tonight I made her a double dose so she could have one for the show tonight and sit and enjoy her.
It's so good.
Hot chocolate. So tonight's actually going to be kind of fun. We actually have an interview that we're doing tonight. And today's show is really the interview of a stepmom. And what better person for us to interview than my beautiful wife.
We had to put a lot of thought into this.
Stepmom. Well, some of us did. Okay, because some of us have.
Yeah, I don't know the questions he's going to be asking.
Yeah,
That's
so
scary.
I'm actually going to interview Christy today, and I feel like some of the questions are good questions. It's questions I feel like are relevant. It's questions that we see online sometimes on these groups. It's some of these things that people have that's going on. So I figured it'd be really awesome to be able to interview my wife, which is always fun. Hi, Miss Stacy. And be able to do that today. So
I can't wait to give you your Christmas present, Stacy.
Yeah, Stacy. Oh, my wife and her Christmas season of all things. It's like we have to have $1 billion for our children for Christmas.
I know it is getting really bad. Like each year, it's getting like more and more and more.
It is bad. It's not getting bad.
We used to have a budget about 3 or 4 years ago, probably 4 years ago.
We have one every year, but
no, I mean where it was $200.
I'd like it early, please. She said
$200 per kid was our budget. Was our budget?
Yeah, it's bad. We're gonna have to file
bankruptcy. Next year. I'll be better.
She says that every year. Let's just be honest. Remember this next year, okay? You've paid attention.
Now it's video recorded.
It's recorded. It's going to be on the internet, so it'll be live for everybody to say she's a liar. Liar, sit on a throne of lies. Okay, so for today, I have a few questions.
Okay. And a lot of you that know me, this is kind of scary, and he knows me very well too, but a lot of times you ask, all the time, you ask me a question and I want an honest answer. You ask me a question and it just kind of just falls out of my mouth. So
yeah, don't hold back.
No, I know it's kind of scary.
Yeah,
because I don't know what kind of. So I hope he prepped for that.
Oh, I'm fine with that. Yeah, I know you.
Oh my gosh,
I know you well enough to where I'm okay with that. I want that. We're looking for raw answers here. So
no, I want to be politically correct.
Do not. Okay, so for my very first question.
Okay,
what was the hardest part of being a stepmom in the beginning?
In the beginning?
In the beginning, what was the hardest part of being a stepmom?
The hardest part?
There's hardest.
3 things that come to mind right
away. So name all 3, but out of those 3, what do you think
your
would be the hardest?
Dealing with your ex. Dealing with your ex was the hardest part. But as far as being a stepmom, it was a teenage daughter because I had 2 boys and they were 8 and 6 when we got together, and little Josh was 9. So to a boy for me was no big deal. But to get thrown into a teenager and a teenage girl on top of that was really, really hard. And then on top of that, dealing with the guilt of trying to love your children and show them that I'm going to be a consistent person in their life and they're safe with me and things like that. I neglected, I think, in a lot of ways, my own kids. I took them for granted. I took them being my children for granted.
But why do you think that? Why did you feel like for you had to step up and make sure that my kids felt loved more importantly than your own kids?
Because your ex is not an emotional person. She didn't love them. She is out living her own life, doing whatever she wants to do. Wasn't motherly to them and teaching them how to love them, and no matter what unconditional love is. A lot of people, not just his ex, it is a conditional love. I will love you and I will do for you if you do this, this, and this, or if you don't do this, this, and this. And all of our kids now, all 4 of our kids, I really hope they realize that, yeah, I don't appreciate some of the decisions they make. I don't agree with them, but they never have to earn my love ever. And I will always be there. I will always, they're going to have to sit through. I've told my oldest this many times. You have to sit through a lecture. I know it sucks. I know that you don't like it. You're the one that broke the trust. You're the one that needs to put up with this and not have an attitude or make a comment. But it was because your ex really isn't loving and motherly towards them. And I didn't have a loving or motherly mom. And I know what that feels like growing up, and I know the damage it did to me when I got older. You knew me when I was 18. I was very reserved, pulled away emotionally, had no feeling, really didn't really cry or anything like that. And the only person that can really change that for people is God. I do want to say that, but a lot of it is the parental upbringing too. Kids count on their parents to make them feel safe.
Did you feel like you had to win my kids over in the beginning to win me over? Did you ever have that feeling?
With your son, yeah.
With my son?
Yeah.
But not with Jordan?
No.
No.
Jordan is much more. Jordan is a girl, number one, and Jordan has her own issues. You know, she was 14, and she, as a lot of you know, Josh isn't biologically her dad, so she had a lot of her own issues, like wanting to be loved. So Jordan, I mean, she wavered back and forth with that, like wanting me to love her, but then, you know, getting guilt from the other side. So then pulling away, but then coming back, then pulling away.
Yeah.
So little Josh is very stoic. I've used that word for him before. He doesn't seem to be starved for affection or really want it. And he is loyal. He is very, very loyal and without question to his mom. And he was much more into you and much more like a brick wall. So I'm like, you and him had such a really close bond.
Yeah.
And I really felt like he needed to be won over too, because he was so protective and territorial over you that he even took that out on my kids, especially Garrett. So I really wanted to win him over to help try to bridge not only between me and you, but me and my kids too. Because if anybody was going to stop that, it would be him.
Do you feel that there was any, that you carried any animosity at all towards him or me because of the relationship that he and I had?
I did in the beginning. In that one time, and I know that you're going to remember this, where Garrett, when Garrett was younger, it kind of breaks my heart to talk about it now, because when Garrett was younger, Garrett just wanted to be friends with anyone and everyone.
He did.
He did. He can be friends with anyone and everyone now, but he doesn't really seem to like humans in general. And so he gets annoyed with them really fast. True. But when he was younger, he literally wanted to be friends with every single person. He would walk up to strangers everywhere we went, everywhere, and just say, "Do you want to be my friend? Do you want to be my friend? Do you want to be my friend?" And Garrett seriously was just so innocent. And, you know, his kids had been exposed to more because of their mother. So they had been, which I was too at a young age. So when you are exposed to things like that at a young age, it makes you grow up mentally quicker. Okay. And so my kids were both still children and mentally, and his kids really weren't. And so Garrett's just bouncing around, bouncing off the walls, being a happy-go-lucky kid and having fun and everything else. I don't remember exactly what it was about. You may. But little Josh got very upset and like pushed him completely down to the ground. And in that moment, I could tell when we first got together, in that moment, I could tell it really hurt Garrett, because he just wanted a friend. He wasn't there to, he wasn't there to try to be like, "Oh, this is my dad now." Yeah. Yeah. Like nothing like that. Garrett just wants to have fun and wanted to have a friend. And to him, it was fun. And Josh wasn't having anything of it. So in that moment and specifically, I really was like angry, like that kid is being such a little jerk and all of that.
Did it really make you feel like at that point, honestly, that maybe it was maybe continuing in our relationship was really the right decision or not?
No, I never questioned us. I questioned, how hard is this going to be? Like, is this going to come to, is this kid ever going to allow me in? And if he doesn't, is this kid going to damage my kids with like bullying, things like that? Because you never know how much, like what's going to be happening behind closed doors. What helped, I think, is that you and I have always, from the beginning, overly communicated about stuff. Excuse me. And so that helped. I think it could have turned into me not wanting to, because it was hard. And you and I talked about that. And where it was like Josh would come to me and say, "I don't even know like if you're going to want to go through all of this, you know, to be with me." And I'm a pretty competitive person and I'm a pretty stubborn person. So I'm just like, I will win. I don't like whatever. But it caused me to question about the kids. Will the kids be okay about this if we stayed together? And how much animosity or what's the damage that possibly, like, I go into damage control. Like, do we need to preserve my kid's innocence about stuff?
Yeah.
Because he was so grown up for his age, and he was so stubborn, and he was so angry in the beginning when you and I got together. Garrett was angry too, but that came later. After he kind of started maturing a little bit.
And I'd say differently too. It came differently.
And that was more towards me.
Yeah.
Josh was angry at everything.
And everybody.
Yeah. When you and I first got together, he was angry, I think, about how his mom was. Like, he wanted a mom. Yeah. And he wanted his mom.
Yes.
And he wanted his mom to be a mom.
Yes.
And it made him mad that I was a mom to my kids. And I think it just made him, they're children. So they have all these grown-up emotions they start feeling, and they don't know how to process them. And then you being me, Ron Deal says being the outsider, I come in and I experienced that as a kid. So I always wished I had somebody that would have sat me down and actually talked to me and allow me to say my honest feelings about things that were going on and really believe me, like how I was feeling. Yeah. So when I tried to do that, I mean, little Josh was having nothing of it, and he really was angry at you. So, and you guys were so close. And so even when you tried, that hurt you. So it actually made me more scared, I think, that you would leave. Because you and his bond was so close.
Yeah.
I was more scared. Like, if anybody was going to cause us to break up, not by my choice, it would be him, and it would be by your choice, because you weren't going to have you and his relationship suffer over a girl.
Yeah. I mean, the tension was real. I mean, it was. We went through it. At what point, though, and has it changed? Has that relationship between my son, you, and me, and the dynamic of the family as a whole, has that changed over the years?
That has completely 180. Did 180 degrees.
So two things then I want to ask you. When do you feel like it really the scale started to tip? Mm-hmm. And then number two, what is it like today? What are we, 11 years in total? Mm-hmm. After 11 years, and they're adults now. I mean, they're not moved out, but they're college kids.
Yeah. It's 24 and 20 and 19 and
the 24-year-old. That's my daughter, but she's 24. She's out and gone, and she's pregnant, and she's married and stuff. So, but number one, when do you feel like when things started to really change with that whole dynamic? And then number two, how do you think that it is today?
So I think our family as a unit really started to change a while ago, like 5 years ago, probably after like 4 or 5 years. So, and we've been together for 11. So like 5 or 6 years, probably a year after we moved into this house.
Okay.
And we really were pushing home. We did devotionals with our kids. So I think a lot of that was putting God at the center of it and having family fun nights. And you and I made our lives circulate around our children, like everything for them and about them, and really made it like family unit, and did everything when we had them, as a family. So I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago. I think it made it difficult. It started to change because we were becoming closer as a family. But any of you that have teenagers, we started being really close as a family. But then at that same time, about 5 or 6 years in, it started being really good. And then all the kids started turning in, besides Jordan. Jordan is 6 years older than everybody else. All the boys started becoming in their teenage years. And the teenage years are very hard for boys, I've realized. Bad. Yeah. So we were fine, but they were angry, but that's normal. With teenager things. Yeah. And now, though, I think the relationship is better than it's ever been. He is very, very matured, a lot, grown up a lot, even more since he's went away to college. And he's very open with his affection. I mean, he doesn't say I love you to me. So, Danielle, if you're watching this, don't worry. But
that's my ex-wife.
He is very open with hugging me, though, and it's the looks. It's like, it's how, actions speak louder than words. So, and that actually means more to me than words. Anybody that knows me, I do talk a lot, but I always back up what I say. I walk the walk. not only talk the talk. And so people, it means a lot to me. If people tell me they're going to do something and they don't do it, I'm extreme about it. I really have to pull myself back because life happens. So people can't always say, oh, I'm going to do this. And then something happens and then they can't do it. Well, it's a big deal to me. Like if you say you're going to do something, do it. And little Josh is just very, with his looks and just his honesty towards me, and he just talks to me and hugs me, and his actions say a lot.
So you would say as a stepmom though that your relationship has taken a complete 180.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt, especially when it comes to him.
Yeah. How about you and Jordan? Do you feel like it's ever developed more, or do you feel like it's always kind of remained the same? Or
I think it's always remained the same.
Around the same?
Yeah, and it's because, and what you and I were talking about earlier, how like you can love people exactly where they're at.
Yeah.
I kind of am like that with Jordan because I was Jordan. So Jordan and I had different things happen to us when we were younger. You know, I was molested, she wasn't, things like that. But the root of all of those things were Jordan didn't know where she fit in. And she just wanted to be loved. And she just wanted, hoped and dreamed like any, child, especially girls, that, they have this beautiful Hallmark family thing, and that you grow up and you know that you're loved without a shadow of a doubt. So naturally, as a person, she will gravitate towards me, and then she'll gravitate towards the other side. And then she'll gravitate, and then she'll gravitate towards the other side. So it's never... I think it's the same.
It's made it difficult to take it to the next level, I would say.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Yeah. But it's also like easier now to talk to her about it. So she has matured, but she's going to be a counselor. So she has learned how to process emotions, I think, in a logical way.
Yeah.
So it is easier to talk to her about that now and be honest, and she can be honest, and it's not like it's like a business meeting. Kind of.
Yeah.
And so that's what has improved, that you can be honest with Jordan about, and she can be honest with us, but she's mature enough to process your emotions that you're talking to her about yourself.
So if you would have to say there's any one thing that you probably carry the most guilt about, what would that be and why?
My kids.
Explain.
So when you and I first got together, I think that I spent so much time trying to make us all come together. We've talked about this before, like microwave our family, that. And Josh suffers with the same guilt. Like now looking back and now reading Ron Deal's book, and it was too late, Ron. We got it too late. We needed to spend one-on-one time alone with our own biological children. And we didn't know what we didn't know, right? So I'm the only one that grew up in a, going back and forth between houses. My dad was married 5 times, and my mom, was with my old stepdad. Now I called him, because she remarried, but I was an adult. So I'm like, I don't want to cause a divide within the home. So like when I would be at my mom and my stepdad's house, it was a obvious division that it was them against me, right? So I was the outsider. My mom had remarried, they had their own kid, and I was the one that was the outsider coming in, and it was obvious. When I went to my dad's, it was hard because my dad had been married so many times. It was like a revolving door of women, and of marriages, I should say. And each woman typically had their own children or their own families. So I constantly felt like I was an outsider. So I thought microwaving our family would be the best, and didn't want division. That was my biggest goal. No division, no division, no division, no division. When really looking back, when you're first getting together with the family, you going and spending a time alone with your biological kids, not all the time, but like once a week or once every other week, you as the parent can help bridge the gap to help them feel safe, to help them want to embrace the blended family, to help them know that it isn't going to fall apart too. Because I didn't think about his kids' feelings or my kids' feelings, really, us getting together.
Yeah.
And now looking back and doing the research that we have and knowing all of these things and reading Ron Deal's books and other books and things like that, the kids are processing their own emotions, and they're typically a year behind the parents. So it's like they're grieving the loss of their parents not being together. And then when we get married, it's like more of a nail in the coffin that their parents will never get back together.
Mhm.
And they have their own little feelings and emotions that they're trying to work through. And so my regret is not really allowing my kids, I feel like, a safe place to really express how they were feeling, but also to make sure they understood what was happening.
Sure.
Because, I mean, we've talked about it on a couple podcasts before, like Graydon just said he's 17. When we were talking about when we got married, that was in 2013. So, it was, I mean, a long time ago.
Long time ago.
He's like, I don't even think I didn't know what was happening that day. Like,
yeah, you were already married. Like, why are you getting married again? Like, doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would have taken more time. And that's what we want. I want other stepmoms to know, especially when, I see so many on these posts and stuff, that groups that we're a part of, and these moms are like, I want to divorce this guy. His kids are jerks. Well, first off, I never thought that. So if you're a Christian, not all the groups are Christian, but if you're Christian and you really are putting a God at the center of your marriage, that shouldn't be an option unless there's some form of abuse going on.
Yeah.
And so you should never want to divorce. You didn't go into it then. You went into it expecting, like, if it got too hard, you were going to leave. So that was never an option for me, that I was going to leave. I was always scared that he was going to leave. And so it made us work harder. I don't know if you were ever scared I was going to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were?
Yeah, for sure. Still a little worried.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, it would be the biggest regret, though, would be my kids. And now, of course, Garrett especially, well, both of them, if I am like, hey, do you want to talk to me about anything? Like, did we screw anything up in the beginning? Is there anything that you'd like to get off your chest? They're like, get away from me.
Yeah, it didn't impact them the way that it impacted you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty normal.
But now the damage is done. Like, I see, like, Garrett will say, like, I'm just not an emotional person. I'm a man. Men don't cry.
But we can't connect those dots. We can't say that.
So it could be for me, like, not nurturing him enough when he was younger. It could be.
We can chase that all the way down.
Remember, I went to school for psychology, babe. Okay, and it's proven scientific facts. Kids.
Yeah,
that's true.
You need to work on your conclusions, woman, because that's not always the case. That is not always good. So other than making sure that we, had time, if we could turn back the clock and we could say to ourselves,
if I could turn back time.
Okay, so if we could go back in time and we could turn back these clocks and we can think to ourselves, other than, making sure that we spent time with our bio kids, what else do you wish that, number one, we either started sooner or that we wish that we knew before?
Jesus. That's the number one thing. I wish we would have. Well, first off, if we put this in perspective, him and I wouldn't have gotten divorced if we would have had Jesus in the center of our lives. So when him and I first got together, we obviously didn't have Jesus in the center of our lives.
And praise Jesus for that.
So that was something that you and I, because we each have our own walk with God that God puts us for. So I feel like, we have had our own walk with God and our own progression through individually and through our relationship. But I really wish we would have found God sooner, because I think it would have helped us be better parents. Well, I know he would have helped us be better parents.
Definitely.
But also given our kids a foundational thing in the church to have a really good set of friends, but also have a youth pastor that they could reach out to if they were struggling and things like that. I wish we would have done that sooner.
I think besides, just all the things that we worked really hard at, our communication skills, all these things, if you notice that, around 6-7 years ago is really when we started getting heavily involved in our church we're in now.
Yeah.
I was on staff. We started Celebrate Recovery. Like a lot of these things, Christ-centered, we really kind of springboarded.
Well, Celebrate Recovery is 4.
We're going to be celebrating our 5th. Yeah. So, I mean, that's all kind of happened around the same time. So it's kind of amazing to see how, that is a really good point. Once we just started not just deciding to make God a part of our life, but making him the Lord over our lives, we really saw some big changes.
Well, I think
I'm glad you brought that up.
I think a lot of what kids, though, see too, and I don't know if they thought this or not, I'm just trying to put it in my own perspective. Like, you're together, you get together, they're processing through their own emotions of it, and then halfway through, all of a sudden we're huge, like God and Jesus and blah, blah, blah. And to them, that's what it comes across. Like everything is God and everything is Jesus and all of these things. And I think as they get older, they could be like, why couldn't you have just done that before? If he was the end all say all, why couldn't you just went to Jesus before you left my dad or before you left my mom?
Yeah.
Why couldn't my mom and dad found Jesus together? If Jesus fixes everything, why? And they will go through whether they talk to you about them or not, they will go through their own questions in their mind about that. And the most comforting thing to me, though, when I think about it now, like I can beat myself up all about the guilt and all of that right now. But the most comforting thing that I found for me is that God had little Josh and Jordan and Graydon and Garrett be born to the parents they were born to for a reason. He knew what their story was going to be. Yeah. He knew the screw ups that we were going to do in their lives as parents, and he still ordained us to be their parents. So he has a specific plan and purpose for them. All I can pray for now is that if they, that they aren't leaning into him as hard as they can, like they should be, which they aren't, that God gets a hold of them by any means necessary, because God will be the most important, because he made them and he loves them more than we love them. So,
yeah. And I think, what you're saying is that, what's been the core strength and producer of quality life is understanding how Jesus plays a personal role in your life. I mean, that's what you're saying.
But it relieves my guilt because God knew all the ways I was going to screw them up.
Yeah, true.
And he still gave them to me. So it's like, he's not surprised by my screw ups. He already knew they were going to happen. Yeah. And so he'll take care of it. He'll take care of it.
If you had to suggest, other than, personal relationship with Christ, the Bible, if you had to suggest one single resource for a stepmom, one resource.
Besides,
tell me why you're getting emotional real quick before we move on.
Because I'm talking about my kids.
Because you're talking about your kids? Do you think that's guilt and regret?
Yeah.
Welling up? Do you think there's anything you can do about those things starting now? You don't think so?
Mm-mm. No. I'm tired. No, I know that God will fix it.
I think God has fixed it. Yeah. If you don't know Christy's extremely hard on herself about everything in life. And she doesn't ever point fingers at anybody. She only points fingers at herself. And the one thing she doesn't do very well is forgive herself. And I think a lot of stepmoms carry that ugly burden. They carry it not just, when you become a step parent, you now have a double-edged sword. Am I loving my kids enough, or am I loving his or her kids enough?
Or too much.
Or too much, right? Is there a balance in it? And if there's anything that you can understand just from Christy's emotions right now, is that it's imperfect, right? She could have done more for her own kids and done less on the other side, and this all could have ended up exactly the same, and we don't know. Right. And so, she said it just a minute ago, God knew all this before and still put her in charge of all the things she's been put in charge of.
And it humbles me.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have.
No, of course not, right?
Yeah.
But God knows your value more than you know your value. And I think that's an amazing thing. And I think there is nothing harder than being a step parent, because Christy has spent the last 11 years of her lives trying to be the best version that she possibly can be, not just for her own kids. In all reality, you have. But you also do it for my kids. And, that's a special gift. My kids I'll get emotional. It's a very special gift, because my kids wouldn't have had that. They would have never been given that, So it is a double-edged thing especially when it comes to step parenting.
Yeah. It's being a step parent, which Josh is a step parent too, but being a step parent, if there's step parents on here, it's very, very painful, because you love kids that hurt you. And it's so weird, because that never love you back. I should say that. It's not that they hurt you, but they never really fully love you back. Not the same. Yeah. And my oldest son is very mean to me. He's going through a phase right now where he just does not like me. Well, it's been a couple of years, so it's a long phase, but he just doesn't like me. But it's weird, because I don't it's different with your own biological child. It really is. And so then you struggle with that too as a step parent. Like, am I giving the same unconditional love to my stepkids that I am my biological kids because I want to? Am I allowing my biological kid to really like hurt me in a toxic way now that they're going to be 20 years old in a few months, that it's just codependent and allowing them to walk all over me and hurt me in an unhealthy way? But I wouldn't allow, my stepchild to do that. So it's a huge struggle with that. And the only person that really, in the midst of all this, I'm listening to an Audible book right now that I've had referred to me by a lot of different women. I just started it last week, called Get Out of Your Head. And it is, it talks about struggles and toxic thoughts like that, which I think everyone struggles with to a point. I think step parenting just adds another layer to that because you already struggle with so many bad thoughts as a parent in general. Yeah. Like, I'm not being a good enough parent. I'm not being good enough this. And then it adds so many different dynamics of emotions when you're a step parent, because it's like you want to love them completely like you do your own kids, because that's how any child deserves to be loved. And I get that from my own personal experience, because I wasn't. So I think every child deserves to be loved in that way, but then they hurt you when you kind of recoil for a minute. And then you have to like process it through, and you have to pray to God to please, keep my mind open and keep my heart open like you would want it. And then you go back and you deal with it for so long, and then you recoil again. So it's very emotionally draining, but it's worth it. Like, we've been together for 11 years, and I really feel like our family is as strong as it could be. Yeah. Our kids are very, very, very close.
They all are.
Yes.
Yeah, they all
That's
are.
why I said kids.
Yeah. I'm just saying they all are, which is, pretty unique, I think.
Yeah.
It's when we get together and we go out and we do things as a family, it's really hard for us to not automatically all draw together and just have our own thing go on. It's really hard for us because we all enjoy each other's company so much, and we have so much fun and like being around all of each other together, that it's really hard. So we have to be very careful now. And that's a great thing, because God has really strengthened the bond in that. And he's done it through us. He has. I mean, he's done a miracle in our own lives.
Well, and a lot of our kids too, our 4 kids are so close too. I don't want to just completely taint Jordan. Our kids are very, very close because of Jordan. Like, Jordan took it upon herself because, like I said, I just can relate to her.
She's a great big sister.
Yeah. I just can relate to her because she was craving love so much when she was younger, that she's like me. She wants to make sure that everyone is taken care of for and protected, and they feel loved and special. And she made it a point she's 6 years older than her brother, little Josh, and then 7 years older than Garrett, and 9 years older than Graydon. She really went out of her way. I mean, from the time she was 14 to she never alienated my kids. She didn't. It was me, but she really has drawn them boys all in. She's made it a point to do special things for each of them, and all of them absolutely adore her and love her. She is a blessing in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Stacey. Stacey says, you have made a wonderfully close family. It's very clear to see. We appreciate that. Stacey is Christy's best friend, if you don't know that. And we've been on vacations together.
She's a little biased.
Yeah. Well, we've been on vacations together and stuff, and people can see the dynamic that we really pour hard into our family and stuff. But, Christy is a lot of things to our family. And I think a lot of people see that, and Christy doesn't always get to see it, as not just as a mom, but also as a stepmom. She's an incredible leader to our family in that way. And, there is so much fruit now that gets to be shown because of it, and it's not always, the fruit doesn't always happen in the areas that you desire all the time, or in the ways that you desire. But I know I'm thankful and grateful for the skills and the love and the openness and stuff that you've given my family, that now we can say is our family.
Yeah.
Because I never think twice about it. And I mentioned earlier, before we got real emotional, about a single resource. Now, you mentioned this book that you're listening to right now. So we'll see if we can't make sure we leave a link on that. But if you could tell a stepmom, what is a single resource that you think would just be a benefit to them at any process or any spot in the step parenting time frame, but what is a great resource that you would suggest?
Besides a person? Because I would say a person.
Who?
Another stepmom that's farther along than you.
Okay.
It's no different than, to me, it's no different than Celebrate Recovery, right? So it's like, once you've recovered, you should be even helping the people that are 2 steps behind you, not in a prideful way, but to help show them the way and to help encourage them when they're falling. But it's the same thing. Like, I should have someone that's 2 steps of me. It's the same thing. So it's going around. So
kind of like a stepmom mentor.
Yes, I do. And you need to make sure they're, they have biblical. Just because a person goes to church and says they're a Christian doesn't mean that they're going to, is it their first go-to thing to give you biblical advice when you go to them out of, are they an emotional thing? Or are they going to be like, yeah, let's go get the pitchforks and in the fire and, burn that place to the ground, and you should leave him and he doesn't tend to your needs. That isn't what God would want. So you need to find somebody, another step parent that would be able to look at you and say, what would God want? What would God want in this situation? It is hard. No one's trying to say it's going to be easy, and God's not going to make it easier for you. He does expect you to go through it, and because that's how we get stronger. God isn't making all pansy whamsy Christians here that are out fighting this fight for heaven. He's making us strong, and the only way we can get stronger is going through trials. I'm sorry, but that's just life.
It's true.
And you have to be able to, besides Jesus and the Bible, I think the single most greatest resource would be to find another stepmom that, okay, if you're a lady, you should not find a stepdad.
No.
And if you're a stepdad, you should not find a stepmom.
That's probably how you ended up in a step situation in the first place.
That might be. So you should find another stepmom that would give you biblical advice and speak the truth in love.
I think that's a great resource. See, and that's amazing because I was thinking a book or a video or something along that line. So I'm glad that I asked that question. 2 questions left. Okay. Besides the resource, a struggling stepmom, what advice would you give her? She is ready to call it quits today. She's had enough.
So I would like for you to reach out to me and tell me what your story is like, to get encouragement about it, because our story is, we went through everything that you could think of. Like, it was very, very, very difficult, but we hung on to each other, and we really did have open communication, and we were willing to go through the fights. We didn't expect that there wasn't going to be fights. We knew there were going to be fights, and we went into them prepared to be respectful during them and to encourage one another. And if you're getting ready to call it quits, I really do believe it's because you probably haven't been in your Bible enough. You haven't been praying enough, and you've allowed the world, which is Satan's goal, to distract you and pull you away from everything. And we all struggle with that, right? That's why we need mentors and things like that, because we slide back naturally. We're imperfect creatures that have a sinful nature already built into us. So it's our sin nature that pulls us away from God. It's not just the devil. It's our own sin nature and our choices that do it. So I think we get blinded by it. I think we go down these spiral paths, and we think we're too busy or we have too much to do. And sometimes that's even serving in the church. It's like, oh, I don't have time to do that right now or to pray right now because I got to get to the church and I have to do this and this and this, and I have to be this for this person, and I have to go mentor this person. And you haven't been taking the time to be quiet. And God really says, be still and know that I am God. Be still and quiet and meditate and listen. Even if it's one Bible verse that you look up, like unconditional love, look up a Bible verse on it, and you just sit there and you just pray. And you don't pray for God to change your situation. You don't pray for God to change your kids. You don't pray for God to change your spouse or your stepkids. You pray for God to change you and your heart, and to change your perspective on it, and to humble you, and to approach it with love and grace and a different his eyes, not your eyes. Yeah. And you need somebody sometimes to help you start that process. People don't typically start working out and become awesome bodybuilders all by themselves through the whole journey. That's not what happens.
True.
But yet we don't talk about that stuff with mental health, or we don't talk about that stuff with struggling. And struggling in a step family is all about mental fortitude. And especially if you're a Christian, you are getting it from all sides. The devil already broke up your marriage once, your family once, and he's definitely not going to leave you alone, especially if you're putting God in the middle of it now. And you have to be strong. And one of the ways of being strong is having someone to help you and remind you of what you're worth and what God says you're worth. And maybe where you're lacking. And that's what a lot of people don't want to hear. Like, I don't want to hear, oh man, I was in my Bible for a month straight every single morning. I was praying. I was so awesome. And then I have one crazy week this past week and I haven't gotten in my Bible once. And guess what? I'm worse off because of it. Like, I'm too busy. I'm too tired. I can do this. God loves me anyway. I should know my worth. I shouldn't have to read the Bible to know my worth, all that stuff. But it's not about that. It's about him calming my soul to take on the day. So
I think the value in that is if you're on the edge of calling it quits, you cannot bring yourself out of the quits alone. You can't do it. Mm-mm. And reaching out to Facebook groups where there's women with pitchforks and knives and ready to slaughter their own spouses is not going to help you. It's going to make you feel justified in your feelings, but it's not going to help you get out of where you're at. So, you can always PM us, right? Personal message. You can always do that here on Facebook. Christy would be happy to help offer any type of guidance. If there's any professional help nearby, counselors and stuff, I would ask that if you do reach out to a counselor, you ask them if they have any type of experience with blended families, because it's a very specific issues. So, I would really suggest those things. So I think what Christy's saying is great, because there's a lot of stepmoms right now that feel like just wanting to give up, and there's nothing worse. It's going to make things worse than giving up, because giving up is not the answer. So.
And if you're going to social media to vent, you're going to find lots of people to justify your feelings there. And the one person that you need to justify your feelings is God. And he's the only person that will truly convict you. And you know in your heart, like, what you should do and what you shouldn't do. Yeah. And that's why a lot of times we go to, people that feel the same as us, because we want them to validate our feelings so that we can feel better when we make a decision that goes against what God's will would be.
Yeah.
And so you really need to pray and meditate, get in his word, and then say, okay, please open the door, open my eyes to something that I can get guidance on to be able to stay where I'm at, to be able to strengthen, for me to be able to get through this season, not for me to give me permission to call it quits.
Okay, for the very last question.
Okay, I'm ready.
Brand spanking new stepmom. She got the rose-colored glasses on. She's going to give everybody, turn everybody into vegetarians, cloth diapers.
Yeah.
Right? Everything's going to be hunky-dory. She's going to be best friends with the husband's ex. Everything's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
What do you believe would be great advice for her?
I hope that you're right, and I hope that it stays. I really do. Because I never want to be one of them cynical people that I'm like, that will never happen. And because it's not true. But life happens. So what I can tell you without fail, there will be a fight. If you fight with your best friend, okay, so, and then you guys come back together. So you are going to have a fight with the ex. You are going to have a fight with your spouse. You are going to have eventually your kids and your stepkids buck a little bit. That it's going to happen. So what I ask you is, that is great. Have the expectations, as long as you're doing them through biblical principles. Have the expectations that God is going to take care of you, and it's expectant, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. That's what he wants us to believe. He wants us to believe the best in people. Yeah. But also be prepared, because the Bible also says that the knocks will come. And when the knocks come, to look at me and focus on me and focus on my face. And so I really, really, really hope that when you do start getting them knocks, you don't emotionally respond to those things about what you think is right and what you think you deserve and what you think your family should not have to put up with or should have to put up with. You need to pause. You need to pray. And you always, always, always need to remember that the kids are in the middle. No matter what you think about their parent or your own ex, They're in the middle. So you need to keep your mouth shut a lot. So you need to die to self. And that's what God would want us to do. So, and I love you for that. I think that's awesome that these new stepmoms think this is amazing. I have like this instant family. I got remarried to the love of my life and I got 2 bonus kids now out of it and 4 bonus kids, whatever. And you are floating on cloud 9. Enjoy it. Enjoy it while it's like that. Don't be the person that's waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm that person. Right. And so I've really tried to work once I got into my 40s. I've really been trying to be present and to really enjoy the moments and take like mental pictures of them when they're there. But don't live in la la land and think you're never going to have trials, because you will.
Yeah. So I think it's important that we end this with saying that stepmoms are underappreciated. They are. They are. And the people that's going to make the biggest difference in their lives is the husbands of these women. They have to deal with our exes. They have to deal with our children. And it's our job as men to step up in our families and to make sure that they feel loved and appreciated and the queen of our lives, not just our homes. And it's understanding that we have a crucial role to play in their lives to make sure that they feel this way, because they're doing the best that they can, and we have to have some type of understanding, men, as we love these women, because these women really are giving our families, us, our children, and everybody else, they're trying their best to make it work. So appreciate them the way that they deserve to be treated, because it's hard. Step families is hard. It's not the way God intended it. So we have a big mess that we have to try and adjust and keep clean each and every day. And it's hard.
I think, too, you need to be reminded, like today, I'm in leadership and I love leadership. I'm very passionate about leadership. I take it very, very seriously and always am looking for ways to be better for the people that I serve. And this morning, I had a very long night. I worked really late and I don't do well without sleep. Some people are amazing at it. They're superheroes to me. Okay, that's not me. And so I'm getting up today and I am just like, I just want to go sit in an office, close the door, and be by myself all day long. And then I start telling myself, I'm allowed to have a bad day. I'm allowed to have an off day. Okay. And I, manage a bunch of grownups. They should be able to deal with me having a bad day. And quickly, just like that, though, the Holy Spirit convicts me and is like, you asked for this responsibility of leadership. So whether or not you're having a bad day, whatever attitude that you take into the day, that is what your employees will take on. That's what they'll mirror. And so if I go in having a bad attitude, it's actually going to make my day worse, because then that means all my employees are going to take on that persona. And that's how parenting is. Like, I know that's tough love kind of, but you chose to have kids. And now you also chose to marry a person that has kids that aren't your kids. And you have to take that responsibility seriously. It doesn't matter how you feel or what you feel entitled that you should be able to have. Your kids look to you to show them how you need to handle being tired or handle the world. And if you're not perfect, if you screw up, you need to show them how to apologize and have good character. And that's what I think a lot of times step parenting needs to be referred to as leadership. Like, you are a leader. It's your responsibility to set the tone for the family and for the kids. And you need to take that seriously. No matter how you feel, you really need to take that seriously. So,
yeah, we appreciate you guys being here. If you've made it this far, we to help us out a little bit, maybe you can hit the share button. We'd really appreciate that. But the stepmom perspective, it's a tough one, but it's one that we need to hear more about. Yeah, it's more that we need to hear about. It's more that, as husbands, we need to appreciate the work that the stepmoms in our lives, our wives, take on, and appreciate them. So thank you so much for being here, and love, thank you for sharing your heart with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Always. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.